Good morning, Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and a continued Hag Sukkot Sameach, a happy festival of booths. Booth being a loose translation of the word, but we're going to play some inspired Sukkot music for you to start off today. A few nice original tune we're throwing in for you here coming up soon. So welcome to all our travelers. Welcome to all new faces. Welcome. Nice to have you at Shalom Macon. Good morning. We're going to have a little fun first. Okay? This is today's message title for you. And in the spirit of, joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room. And heaven and nature sing. And heaven and nature sing. And heaven and nature sing. You know this song, right? Okay, you can sing it. Joy to the earth, the Savior reigns. Let men their songs employ, while fields and floods, rocks, hills, and plains repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy. He rules the world with truth and grace, and makes the nations prove the glories of his righteousness, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his was a prophet, said these words long ago. Sukkot is a party for the whole wide world, a real mighty fine time. Rejoice in a mighty fine time. I said joy for the world, all the boys and girls. Party in your sukkah, and happy you'll be. Sukkot, joy for you and me. When he is the king of the world, I tell you what he'll do. He will be one and his name will too, and he's gonna dwell with you. I'm telling you that it's true. I said joy for the world, all the boys and girls. Party in your sukkah, and happy you'll be. It's Sukkot for you and me. I said joy for the world, all the boys and girls. Party in your sukkah, and happy you'll be. Sukkot, joy for you and me. Party in your sukkah, and happy you'll be. Sukkot, joy for you and me. Sukkot, joy for you and me. Sukkot, joy for you and me. I taught you this last week. You ready? Can you do it? This is the time of our rejoicing. Zeman simchatenu. This is the time of our rejoicing. Zeman simchatenu. Baruch haba Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shechechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Hallelujah, Sukkot has come. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Sukkot has come. Hallelujah. Right? This is the time of our rejoicing. Zeman simchatenu. This is the time of our rejoicing. Zeman simchatenu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shechechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Hallelujah, Sukkot has come. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Sukkot has come. Hallelujah. This is the time of our rejoicing. Zeman simchatenu. This is the time of our rejoicing. Zeman simchatenu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shechechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Hallelujah, Sukkot has come. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Sukkot has come. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Sukkot has come. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Was that joy? Okay, I'm glad. I thought I heard joy for just one split second. I wanted to grab it while I was there. Caught a glimpse of your splendor in the corner of my eye. The most beautiful thing I've ever seen. It was like a flash of lightning reflected off the sky. And I know I'll never be the same. Show me your glory. Send down your presence. I wanna see your face. Show me your glory. Majesty shines above
mountain, get back to my life. I won't settle for ordinary things. Gonna follow you forever, for all of my days. I won't rest till I see you again. Show me your glory, sit down in your presence. I wanna see your face. Show me your glory, majesty shines about you. I can't go on without you, Lord. Show me your glory, sit down in your presence. I wanna see your face. Show me your glory, majesty shines about you. I can't go on without you, Lord. Your love, oh Lord, reaches to the heavens. Your faithfulness stretches to the sky. Stretches to the sky. Your righteousness is like the mighty mountain. Your justice stretches to the heavens. Your faithfulness stretches to the sky. Guide us by your presence, how we need you. Oh Lord, lead us to the kingdom, bring us back to freedom, how we need you, how we need you. Salvation, be our strength and song. Oh Lord, we will sing your praises. You are our salvation, be our strength and song. Oh Lord, we will sing your praises. You are our salvation, be our strength and song. Oh Lord, we will sing your praises. You are our salvation, be our strength and song. How we need you, God. Oh, how we need you. Sing it with me, the last one. Fill us with your spirit, O Lord. Oh Lord, fill us with your spirit. Guide us by your presence. How we need you. Guide us by your presence. How we need you, God. We're all headed for the kingdom. Oh Lord, lead us to your kingdom. Bring us back to freedom. How we need you, God. How we need you. Let's stand together as we enter into the courts of the King. If you're visiting with us for the first time, again, welcome. This is the part of our service where we all speak in tongues. It's a good and safe tongue, though. It's the tongue in which the Bible was written, actually. Hebrew. Ivrit, you say it in Hebrew. And it is called Lashon Kodesh. It's the holy tongue. God's very words created this earth. Yalalai, 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 yalalai. Yalalai, 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 Baruch Hu et Adonai, HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, Le'olam va'ed, Le'olam, 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 va'ed, Yalalai, Yalalai, You may be seated. Deuteronomy 6 and other parts of Deuteronomy and Numbers have a prayer that is the watchword of Israel. It's a part of the words Yeshua said when he said, these are the most important things. This is actually the most important one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. This is the southern version of the Shema. If the Allman Brothers were Christians, this is how they would have written it. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Blessed is the name of his glorious King. Blessed is his name throughout eternity. Blessed is the name of his glorious King. All eternity. All eternity. Yeshua, he is my Messiah. He is Lord of all. Yeshua, he is my Messiah. He is Lord of all. Now we stand again, and you're learning a new concept that is called Jewish aerobics. This is how we worship here. And a bit of Bible trivia for you. In Acts 2, in the new believing community, when it says that they all gathered together and they were doing all kinds of cool things together, it says that they continued in the prayers. Not in prayer. Greek, it's a definite article that says the prayers. Those prayers, or the prayer, were these prayers that we're about to sing, which were part of the temple liturgy. I mean, not part of the temple liturgy, part of the early foundations of prayer, and still today are referred to in the service as ha-tefillah, the prayer. Open my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Adonai, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Open my lips, open my lips, open my lips, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise, declare your praise, declare your praise. Tight tiftar, ufiagi tehilatecha. To the God who is faithful through all of the generations. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotzeinu. Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot, U'Mevi Goel Livnei V'neihem Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach U'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham. Amen. To the God who is faithful to raise the dead. Baruch atah Adonai Mechayeh HaMetim. The Holy One of Israel, seated above the heavens, as we echo the words of the angels as they declare before his throne. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzvaot, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. And to the God who has granted us this day of rest and refreshing, the Shabbat, and also the day of Sukkot, or one of the days in between, with a special reading that I'll add to this one at the end. Baruch atah Adonai Mikadesh HaShabbat. Thank you. This is just worth hearing, and we missed it in the first service, so I'm going to read it in English for you. Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu. Wait, that's not English. That is, O our God and God of our fathers. Let there ascend and come and arrive and appear and be favored and be heard and be noticed and be remembered. The remembrance and notice of us. The remembrance of our fathers. The remembrance of Messiah, son of David, your servant.
The remembrance, it goes this way, the remembrance of Jerusalem, the city of your holiness, the remembrance of your entire people, the house of Israel before you, for preservation, for goodness, for grace, for devotion, for compassion, for good life, and for peace on this day of the festival of Sukkot. Remember us on it, O Lord our God, for goodness, and notice us on it for blessing, and save us on it for good life. And regarding salvation and compassion, take pity, be gracious to us, have compassion on us, and save us, for our eyes are focused on you, because you are the gracious and compassionate divine King. To the God who is restoring his presence to Zion, Baruch atah Adonai hamachazir shechinato leTzion. To the God worthy of all thanksgiving and gratitude, Baruch atah Adonai atov shimcha lohanei lehodo. And to the God who grants us peace, Baruch atah Adonai havarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. If it's difficult for you to stand this long, you may be seated at this time. We are singing now the Lord's Prayer as you know it, but let's do it for you in Hebrew, the way that they did it. Yeah? Shabashamayim Yikadesh Lecha Tavo Malchutecha Ye'aseh Retzonecha Kasher Bashamayim Yam Ba'aretz Elavenu Lemachar Telanu Hayom Umechalanu Al Chomoteinu Ka'asher Mechavnu Kamananu Lechayaveinu Ya'atenu Lidei Nisayon Im Tatzilenu Minara Kilecha Mamlecha Ve'agevura Ve'hafti Be'eret Le'ome Olam Amen. Now you can say you prayed it just like Jesus did. It is in his merit, in his perfection, and his virtues that we offer all of our prayers for the Holy One. For the sake of our Master Yeshua, and his merit and his virtue, may the sayings of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be favorable to you. Oh Lord, my rock, my redeemer. 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 Yeshua, who HaMashiach, who Adon HaKol. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, the King of the universe, who has given us salvation in the way of Messiah Yeshua. Amen. You may be seated. And now it's a requirement that everyone, whether you're first time here or not, we're going to teach you the most difficult song as we conclude these morning songs. It's very hard. Right, congregation? Very hard. Shabbat Shalom. See, they got it. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. And now you're pretty much singing the song right now. So that's a greeting of a peace on the Sabbath for you, a peaceful Shabbat to you. We take our offerings are given mostly online, but you can go to that link right there and find out all the different ways that we collect offerings. And then the box is in the back. The tzedakah box is in the back of the sanctuary. What are the words? Good. Here's how it goes.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. I tricked you a little bit. This part's a little harder. Just observe. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. 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 Oda Bitu Chai, Oda Bitu Chai. Oda Bitu, Oda Bitu, Oda Bitu Chai. Oda Bitu Chai, Oda Bitu Chai. Oda Bitu, Oda Bitu, Oda Bitu Chai. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you to our guest percussionists. This is Michael.
Amen. Good stuff this morning. I wanted to, Dave, as you can tell, is not here. I know I'm not as good looking as him, but we'll have to deal with that. First off, I want to say it was amazing to hear I would call it maybe our youth choir, this whole back section of young adults and children all together singing. And when we got to the Shema, it was just amazing. I could hear Jeremy's voice no, I'm joking. But just love hearing the young people praising the Lord. That was amazing. So thank you guys for giving it your all. Second, I want to start with an apology. If you've noticed, there's been a severe lack of emails this week. And that's because we use a program called Constant Contact. And I was cleaning up our email list late Saturday night, probably too late, because I'm usually going to bed at like 9:30 or between 9:30 and 10:30. And this was somewhere after midnight. And clicked delete button, and all of our contacts magically disappeared. So we've had the technicians at Constant Contact trying to recover those. But in the meantime, why don't you guys go ahead and start sending us emails with your email addresses? Everybody here and everybody online at members@shalommacon.org. Shalom Macon only has one M, as you can see, members@shalommacon.org. So everybody just start sending your stuff in, because they said it'd take about 2 days, and that was Monday, and they haven't replied. They haven't updated us on that, so we may have to start afresh and anew. I apologize. So please send us your email addresses, anyone who would like to be on the list, those of you online as well. Okay, we are in the middle of Sukkot. We have an amazing camping trip that many of us are participating in at Indian Springs. We are in campsites 1 through 22 in that area. There's a little loop there that we're all packed in together. It was amazing last night for the first time us getting together. It's an amazing community, just campfire-ish feel and everything for Shabbat. So we are going to have a lot of stuff going on today and tomorrow if you would like to join us. If you're not camping and you want to come out and join some of the activities, beginning today after service, we're going to be going out there, and you can bring your own lunch. We're going to eat lunch together and enjoy each other's company. I would imagine there's probably going to be some Torah study going on. There's probably going to be some afternoon Mika prayers, and then just hanging out and fellowshipping and getting to know one another, having a good time. And then tonight we'll do Havdalah together. If you've never done Havdalah is a ceremony that means separation, and it distinguishes, it separates the holiness of Sabbath from the commonality of the rest of the week, and that we're entering into this evening after sundown. And so we'll do that together. It's always a fun time. Tomorrow is the big day. Tomorrow is Family Day, and we're going to be having lots of activities for the family. Starts at 10 a.m. If you have children, what are their age group? 5 or younger, or all the way up to 12? Okay, any age up to 12 that wants to participate, beginning at 10 o'clock tomorrow, from 10 to 12. I'll see you there. Yeah. Okay, between 10 and 12, we're going to have our very first Club Dorot, okay? And this is based off of our Camp Dorot. That's the big day thing and sometimes a week thing. This is going to be like a little Torah Club type event that Shelly and Sabrina and others have talked about developing. And this will be our first one. We're going to try to do it like right before the holidays or something like that on a continual basis to help our kids understand about the holidays and teach them all this different stuff and have a great time with them. So that's 10 to 12 if you want to bring your children. And then we're going to have a kosher hot dog lunch at around noon. We'll be cooking the hot dogs, providing the hot dogs if you want to bring your own sides and stuff like that, or sides to contribute. So just remember, it will be a meat meal. So if we can refrain from bringing dairy during that meal, that would be great. And then we're going to have activities through the afternoon, all kinds of games and fun and stuff. We're going to have, what'd you say? We're going to have kickball, is that right? And ultimate frisbee, and somebody needs to go ahead and probably be the one that's going to volunteer to pick my son Kai up off the ground and take him to the hospital, because he usually goes 150% into anything that he does sport-wise, and then he usually ends up getting hurt. Kai, yeah. So anyway, and then we're going to have that evening, we're going to have a variety show. And your family can contribute and bring something to the table. You can sing a song, you can tell a story, you can do some kind of weird whatever. Do a magic trick, I don't know. Do something that's cool and fun and brings joy to us all. And last, I want to say a good welcome and hello to a couple of online people that we have online with us today. I was very surprised to see a note both in the early service and this service from Sylvia from Buenos Aires, Argentina. So we're good to have you, Sylvia. I'm so glad to have you. And we also have a Garlina from Kansas City. And we have many others, but I wanted to take note of those. Thank you guys for joining us online. Thank you so much, guys, for coming out. See a lot of faces I haven't seen in a while. Sig, I'm not going to point you out. But good to see you. Bless you guys, and we're going to have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Show weird whatever is that's we're not going to do that, but I just did my act. I'm about to do more of it. I want to read you something real quick. It's a bit of a tragedy, but also there's great encouragement. We just finished a long series on heaven and hell and the afterlife and all this. Tragically, a Torah Club leader by the name of Donald Hood, who I have been in touch with over the last few weeks, in and out of the hospital with COVID, but went into the hospital, then went into ICU, and then was doing well. He recovered and expected that he was to go into rehab on Monday. He passed away early Sunday morning in the hospital. But I got this note from one of his fellow Torah Club leaders, and it brought Kelly and I to tears last night as we read it, and it's very short and sweet, but keeping in mind what we talked about with death and what comes next. This is from Brenda Creviston. He passed away early Sunday morning. His funeral was yesterday. On the same day a year ago was the memorial service for his wife. We walked through that together. His kids are in shock as they thought he was getting better too. He was very optimistic, and he said he was feeling better than he had for a while. His kids were with him when he passed. And his last words as he looked into the distance were, awesome. Awesome. I wonder if he had a glimpse of paradise. He loved to worship God, so I'm sure he feels right at home. I thought that was tremendously beautiful, and may Don's memory be for a blessing. Kids, let's go to Shabbat school and learn. We are probably going to need some help from anyone who's willing to help in Shabbat school. Yeah. Class will be meeting at Noah's Ark today. You start on the other side with the girls. I'll do the boys. Okay. No. It's a long line. We'll take it like we do Hebrew from right to left. Yisimcha Elohim ke'Ephraim v'hi Menashe. May God make you like, who is it? Ephraim and Menashe. Lots of young men up here. And beautiful girls. Yisamech Elohim. Kesarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. May God make you like Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. And may God bless all of our children, Father, and continue to walk with them and protect them, to raise them up as mighty servants of God, disciples of Yeshua. Bless their parents as they undertake this ever-exciting journey of parenting in 2021. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you his peace. B'Shem Yeshua, Amen. Okay, let your parents take you to Shabbat school and we'll figure that out. So, Merry Christmas. Well, actually, that's good. We do it backwards in Messianic Judaism. First, we say Happy New Year, which we just did in Rosh Hashanah, and now we say Merry Christmas. What we don't really, but just stay with me for a second. What does Christmas actually recall beyond all of the things that surround it? It recalls the birth of Jesus, right? Christ's Mass. It's a Christ Mass is not really a date, it's a thing. It's celebrated in the Christian world with the Eucharist and a reading from the Word. That is what the Christ Mass was. And, now in the world, that day happens on a date, December 25th, which was first celebrated officially in Rome in 336. The oldest notice of the Feast of Christ's Nativity occurs in a Roman almanac. And that festival was observed by the church in Rome in the year 336. But guess what? We can't possibly begin to know that the date of December 25th is the date in which Yeshua was born. We can't know that. There's zero solid info or even discussion, speculation in the New Testament about when Yeshua was born. They just don't talk about it. There's certainly lineage and a story of the narrative of how it happened, but when isn't really discussed. As a matter of fact, there are different dates anyway. The Western Church has December 25th, the Eastern Church has January 6th, but those aren't even the earliest suggested dates. The first we read is in the mid to late 3rd century from Clement of Alexandria, and he gives totally different dates for the date for Yeshua's birth, April 20th or May 20th. So Clement was fairly confused. But let's have a purposeful digression. Where did December 25th come from? Well, the easy answer, and the one that you've heard before, no doubt, especially in the Hebrew roots and some of the more militant Messianic Jewish arms, is pagans. Paganism. December 25th in Rome, Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, the day of the unconquered, S-U-N. That's when that was celebrated. Do you know why it was celebrated then? It's interesting. It was actually the victory of the sun over darkness. Because at that point, the nights had been getting longer and longer and longer, and darkness was overtaking. But when the day began to get longer, they thanked their gods that the light was winning. That's what it means when it says the days of the unconquered sun. You know what's really interesting about that? Is we find that same story in the Talmud from Adam. Anyone heard of Saturnalia? Well, Saturnalia is not December 25th solstice celebration. Saturnalia is a different festival. It had to do with the god Saturn, and yeah, it was pretty tricky if you were a religious person, unless you were a total pagan. A lot of bad things happened on Saturnalia. It was a pagan festival with Greek and Roman origins, but that's not what December 25th was. Saturnalia was over by then. Interestingly, as I said, the Talmud uses the term Saturnalia when it is talking about Adam actually starting the tradition for the very same reason I just gave you about the light overtaking the darkness. Now, I'm going to give you your money's worth today, so stay awake. I'm going to give you a lot of information because you need it. Adam also was concerned, the Talmud tells us, that the world was created, the tradition tells us the world was created in the 7th month, in September, October. But what Adam observed over time was that the days were getting shorter and shorter, and more darkness was coming. But all of a sudden, on December 25th, he observed that, or not December 25th, but somewhere around the solstice, the winter solstice, he observed that the light was actually overtaking the darkness. And he thanked God that God restored light. And he celebrated festivals around those days. Did you know that? It's incredibly intriguing to imagine that Adam and Jewish tradition might have been behind the idea of this pagan thing that they corrupted, and that's what the Talmud says. The Talmud says Adam had a great idea, thanking God for this, and then the pagans came along and ruined it and turned it into orgies and drunken and all this other kind of stuff. But, and it's important to note, some of the customs of the Greek and Roman festivals attached to Saturnalia and the Invictus Solis, they did get attached to the Christmas celebration. Okay? All that is true. But there's an argument that says that Rome was trying to make the pagans happy, so they just changed Saturnalia into Christmas, and the unconquered S-U-N became the unconquered S-O-N, and that's where it all came from, and we should, hate Constantine even more. Constantine's a bad person, and he did a lot of bad things. I don't like him. But that isn't actually that accurate either. because the early Christians had been persecuted by pagans a lot. They did everything they could to distance themselves from pagan activities. They weren't inviting pagans to come and switching festivals around so that they could so that the pagans could have a greater attachment to it. They were struggling against paganism, and generally they shunned those types of associations. It's hard to imagine that some church father or priest or bishop thought, I know, let's turn Saturnalia into a Christian festival. That'll work really well. So there's no real hard evidence that that happened. But we cannot deny that there are pagan associations that went through Rome, through Europe, and through Germany, and all that became part of it. That is a certainty. But here is a very, very interesting, different consideration as to why December 25th was chosen. I don't know how many people will know this. And yes, this is a Sukkot message, so just hang on. You're going to like this. Good learning here. There's a really interesting, different consideration as to why December 25th was chosen. And do you know what it's related to? Judaism. I'm reading now from Francisco Varro, the professor of sacred scripture at the University of Navarra. A more plausible explanation sets the date of the birth of Jesus dependent on the date of his incarnation, which was related as well to the date of his death. Okay? So the tradition suggests that he was conceived and died on the same day. Conceived and died on the same day. An anonymous reference about solstices and equinoxes affirms that our Lord was conceived in the month of March on the 25th. Conceived on March 25th, and that is also the day of his passion, it says, because he was conceived and died on the same day. That's from an anonymous ancient text. The relation between the passion and the incarnation, the passion, the death, and the conception of Yeshua, the relation between those things, is an ancient medieval idea, thinking which admired the perfection of the universe, that God bookended things like that. Another one is a concept that also finds its roots in Judaism, in which creation and salvation were related to the month of Nisan. The month of Nisan often happens in March. And that's true. That's true. Judaism teaches in Tractate Rosh Hashanah, again in the Talmud, Rabbi Yehoshua said, in Nisan, the world was created. In Nisan, the patriarchs were born. In Nisan, the patriarchs passed on. On Passover, Nisan, Isaac was born. In Nisan, they, the Jewish people, were redeemed from Egypt. In Nisan, they will be redeemed again in the future. In other words, the conception of the world took place in Nisan, according to this opinion. And the redemption of the world will take place in Nisan, according to that opinion. That is Jewish. That is Talmud. That is as Jewish as it gets. That's rabbinic. Do you see the connection? Let me make it. The early Christians were suggesting that Jesus' conception on March 25th and 9 months later was Merry Christmas, baby Jesus, December 25th. First of all, Jewish tradition also suggests that the coming of the Messiah will happen in the month of Nisan. So by the Christian math I just showed you, Jesus' conception, his coming to the world, being conceived in his mother's womb, took place in March on the 25th in the month of Nisan. And that was equated with his coming. Is that interesting? I think so. I think so, that somewhere, just like maybe at the root of the festival of Saturnalia, something hellaciously pagan, it is also conceivable that by a Jewish understanding of redemption, salvation, creation, deliverance, that they attached Yeshua's conception to March 25th and thereby math added 9 months and December 25th became his date of birth. You ever heard that? It's interesting, isn't it? Judaism undergirds almost everything, whether you know it or not. Therefore, what's the takeaway? Well, Christmas is pagan. We stopped celebrating that holiday a long time ago, and we told all our friends it was pagan and they shouldn't celebrate it either. Well, let's be clear here. I don't believe Yeshua was born on December 25th. Messianic Judaism does not celebrate Christmas. Yeah, sort of, maybe because of some of the pagan affiliations, but you know what the real reason is? Because it's not in the Bible. Because there are a whole bunch of other festivals that are in the Bible that God says we should celebrate. So we celebrate those. That's the main reason. It's not so that we can walk up to somebody when they're buying a Christmas tree in the lot and go, pagan. There is a whole lot of evidence that Yeshua celebrates the festivals. We are his disciples. We are the children of God. So with all the vim and vigor we can muster, we celebrate the biblical festivals, of which Christmas and Easter are not two of them. Okay? And it's especially sad, in my opinion, that the majority of the believing world misses out on the blessings of the biblical festivals, like the one we're in right now, which there is nothing better than Zaman Simchatenu, the season of our rejoicing, Sukkot. But I told you all that to say two things. The thing about December and Saturnalia and Nisan and all that, to say two things. First of all, we have to be careful when we're attacking others, thinking that we have all the answers. I have done a lot of damage in the process of attacking people. I don't have time to tell you. I wish I could tell you, but I can't. It's another story about me attacking somebody about Christmas and never being invited back. Can you believe that? But I've seen a lot of damage done across the board in the name of defeating paganism and Christianity. Make sure you know the whole story before establishing an attack strategy. Actually, better, don't develop an attack strategy. Better yet, let's be like Peter encouraged us to be, and be humble. Humbly know the whole story, always being ready to make a defense to everyone who asks you to give an account for the hope that is in you, but with gentleness and respect. There is a great joy, I assure you, in being able to say to somebody, do you know where December 25th comes from? It's actually a Jewish idea. Did you know that Judaism undergirds almost everything you believe and everything you know and knew? Did you know that? Did you know that there are festivals of God that Judaism has celebrated that are more actually likely connected to God's Son's birth? Doesn't that seem a lot more likely to attract someone to ask questions than, Christmas is pagan? Sorry, I had to yell for emphasis. I shouldn't have. I'm sorry. Now, I would eventually get into some associations about some of those things if asked. But I want to include the world. I don't want to isolate us or anyone else. And the truth is, we don't actually know when Jesus was born. So to go climb a hill to die on about that is not very smart. There are a lot of other important hills to die on first. But with that, the second point, I did tell you Merry Christmas. What's that all about? Well, because there is, I'm going to say it, an equally unfounded biblical case that Yeshua is born at Sukkot. Biblically unfounded. I didn't say it, there's nothing to support it, but biblically unfounded. It's very hard to prove that Yeshua was born at Sukkot.
When was Yeshua born? Sukkot. Oh, well, Merry Christmas. No, what is our evidence? What is our evidence? Why does Sukkot work better? Well, first of all, it's theologically convenient. There's something beautiful about being able to say the Word became flesh and tabernacled among us. Ooh, Sukkot. Ooh, Sukkot. Sukkot is the season of our joy, an appropriate time to declare joy to the world. It's joy. That's what it's about. And it very much ties Yeshua into the fall festival cycle. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret. The fall festivals that are yet to be fulfilled. And yeah, there's not a lot of pagan influence in Sukkot. So that's theologically convenient. But here are some run-through attempts at proving a Sukkot birth for Yeshua. And I'll admit, I love the idea, and I subscribe. There are some potential hints. For instance, John the Baptist's father, his name was Zechariah, right? He was a priest. He served in the temple. Priests had certain times at which they served in the temple. They had their courses when they were there. So the idea is, if we figure out when Zechariah was in the temple and when they announced, Gabriel came to him and announced it, then all we need to do is that was John's conception and Yeshua was conceived 6 months later. We can just do the math. If we just nail down Zechariah's priestly course, we can know. And what they say is that he was in the temple at a time where it makes Yeshua born at Sukkot. Well, it's a very good idea, but it's very hard to know for certain which course Zechariah was serving in. There was more than one, and sometimes all of the priests served in the temple at festivals and holidays. It's hard to know that. You can't build your case around that math. Secondly, Yeshua was born in a sukkah, because the word stable is there, and that means sukkah in Hebrew. Well, it doesn't. And it doesn't say anywhere in the text that the baby was born in a stable. It says he was laid in a manger, a feeding trough. But that actually would take us in a different direction than a stable, if we think about the first century Jewish home. The typical house structure. By the way, Gabriel Lancaster, is he in this room still? There he is. I'm borrowing his dad's notes for some of these things. Daniel Lancaster, I credit Daniel for some of these quick, wonderful insights. But the most homes in Israel had two parts, one for the family, another for the household animals. Okay? Part of the house, actually. Now, that animal part would have been, first floor for animals, second for family. Some early traditions describe it as a cave. It's probably more like a cellar, but so get the picture. Joseph and Mary travel to Bethlehem. They have relatives there, obviously. They make room for them, but there's just simply no space for them to stay with all of the parents, all of the people upstairs. So downstairs where the animals have been brought in is a feeding trough. Mary and Joseph lay him there and he rests. But sukkah doesn't really work. We can't get to sukkah from feeding trough. Okay? And so it turns out, actually, those are two very, very common arguments, but it turns out that almost every argument could be disproven if someone really wanted to. Bummer, dude. You're killing my vibe, Rabbi. Sukkot, man. I love Sukkot. I do too. So let's make some worthwhile connections. Evidence from a Jewish perspective. John the Baptist. He was born 6 months before Yeshua. In the Gospels, John comes in the role of the spirit of Elijah, right? What is Elijah most associated with? Passover, Pesach. And Jewish tradition maintains that Elijah will appear at Passover to announce the coming of the Messiah. Elijah is a huge part of the Passover festival. We read Malachi, the Sabbath before Passover. There's a place at the Seder table set for Elijah. And in the gospel story, Gabriel tells Zechariah he will be mute until the day these things take place. Here's where a lot of the information comes, so just stay with me. We're coming to the end here. In the gospel, Gabriel tells Zechariah he'll be mute until the day these things take place, which will be fulfilled in their time, in their appointed time. That should take us immediately right back to another very similar story in Genesis 18. When God appears to Abraham and says, Sarah will conceive a son at the appointed time. You see the connection? A divine message, an appointed time. According to Jewish tradition, the appointed time at which Sarah gave birth was, can you guess? Pesach, Passover. And how do we know that Isaac was born at Passover, it says? Because it is written, at the appointed time I'll return to you, and Sarah will have a son. That's also Talmud. So we make these two connections. One, if the appointed time in the related stories was Passover, and if John was the Elijah to come, who is a big part of that, if John the Immerser was born on Passover, then the Master should have been born 6 months later, which was Sukkot. Okay? There's some Torah-based math. The Shalosh Regalim. Israel was required to go to Jerusalem for 3 festivals. We talked about it in the Torah portion today. Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot. The city was packed with pilgrims at the Shalosh Regalim. Israel was commanded to be there, and I don't mean Israel, Jacob, or one person. Israel. Side note, it's very unlikely, just going back to our December 25th thing, it's unlikely the city would be packed to the gills on December 25th. Okay? But who travels to Israel in December anyway? Oh, wait, we do. That's when our trip is scheduled. But listen, okay, great. 3 festivals, Passover, Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot. It could have been any one of the 3. That's true, but listen. In the countryside nearby, Luke says, in the countryside nearby were some shepherds spending the night in the fields. This is the birth story of Yeshua, guarding their flocks. When an angel of Adonai appeared to them in the Shekinah, the Shekinah, the glory of Adonai, shone around them. They were terrified, but the angel said to them, don't be afraid, because I'm here announcing to you good news that will bring great joy to the people. This very day in the town of David there was born for you a deliverer who is the Messiah, the Lord. The angels come to proclaim great joy. Now, if I say joy to the world to you, what do you think of? Christmas. In Judaism, we think of Sukkot. In Judaism, we think of Zaman Simchatenu, the season of rejoicing. Great joy surrounding everything. And there are commandments that we rejoice in this season in the Torah. Leviticus, Deuteronomy. This is the time for great joy. And the birth of Messiah, what greater possible joy could one find? So it's a loose connection. But it's a connection. Shmini Atzeret, the 8th day. You have Sukkot, day 1. We're suggesting Yeshua was born that day. 7 days for the festival. 8 days is this sort of thing in between, right? Which is Shemini Atzeret, the 8th day gathering, the festival. But what we find is if Yeshua was born on the first day of Sukkot, what would have happened on Shemini Atzeret? Snip, snip. He would have been circumcised in conjunction with yet another biblically ordained festival. Born on Sukkot, circumcised on the 8th day. What's important about 8? 8 is the number for new beginnings. 8 is this realization that something new was happening. And that is the truth of the matter. When Yeshua showed up, something very new was happening. And so we see this loose connection. Again, the culmination of God's plan. 8th day, new beginning. The Jewish boy enters the covenant. He receives his name. That was the day at which he was named.
Yeshua, salvation on the 8th day. You see? It's beautiful, right? Now, those are still not evidence. They're speculative. But here's a last very interesting and sort of difficult connection to make, but it's a bit more historical. I rarely wrestle through figuring out how to say things, but I couldn't make sense of this, so I just completely copied a blog from Daniel. There is a story that's told. It's called Agada de Shimon Kifa. It's called the story of Simon Peter. It is a medieval text. It goes along with another text. It's called Toldot Yeshu. These are derogatory texts from Judaism toward Christianity. They are very unbecoming toward Yeshua, toward Christians, all of these things. The story of Simon Peter is one of these, and this is what it says. Now, I told you the texts are medieval, but the foundation of the texts is suggested to be much, much earlier. Okay? And that matters here in just a second. That Toldot Yeshu, this other book, it's dependent on a 2nd century Jewish Christian gospel. So even though it was sort of mass distributed later, it had been around for a long, long time. The tales of the story of Simon Peter insist that Peter was actually a false believer. That he was not a believer in Yeshua, that he only pretended to be a Christian in order to save Israel from the anti-Semitism that was coming from the church. Okay, I know, just listen, it's not a real text. Therefore, he is declared, and Judaism has a very positive opinion of Peter. It's actually suggested that Peter wrote one of the prayers in our morning liturgy that's called Nishmat. But he is declared a hero because he persuaded the Christians to leave the Jews alone. And in turn, he saved Jews and Judaism. The historical background is this. These stories came around at a time of very, very harsh Christian persecution toward the Jews. Lots of them. And legends like this were invented in the Jewish community in order to delegitimize what they perceived as one of the major founders of the Christian faith. This is Peter. Because if it could be shown that Peter's Christian faith was phony, then the entire religion could be regarded as illegitimate, and that would strengthen the Jews. So, like I said, it's not real. We know from the Gospels and the apostolic texts, we know who Peter was and what he did. But this was circulating. Now, that's a little bit of the background. What they told, this is the way the story goes. The Nazarenes, the Jewish Christians, were causing such a problem in the synagogue that the Jews said, who's going to help us with this? This is when Peter was around. And Peter stood up and said, I will do it. I will go to them and I will confuse them dramatically, and they'll leave the synagogue and we'll be delivered and Judaism can keep going. So Peter's this hero who goes. And in the legend, one of the things that Simon Peter says or does is to steer the new community away from celebrating the pilgrimage festivals. What were they? I just told them to you. Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. Passover, the Festival of Weeks, and Sukkot. That he goes to them and he says this. They accomplish this because Peter goes and says to this community of Christians that they're Jews, they're Jewish Christians, goes to them and says, you will not celebrate the festival of unleavened bread anymore. Now celebrate the day of his death. Okay? Do away with celebrating Passover, celebrate the death of Messiah. Did that happen? Yeah, that happened.
celebrating the death of Messiah on Passover. He also says, in the place of the festival of Shavuot, celebrate the 40 days from his execution until after his ascension to the firmament. This is the text of Simon Peter's story. So don't celebrate Passover, celebrate the death of Messiah. Don't celebrate Shavuot anymore. I want you to celebrate the ascension of Messiah. Does that happen? Yes, there's an ascension festival that happens. And lastly, listen to this. In the place of the festival of Sukkot, you will celebrate the day of his birth. And on the 8th day from his birth, you will celebrate his circumcision. This fictitious story is trying to credit the leadership of the Jewish community with, in essence, the creation of Christianity. But what kind of Christianity is that? It's the first century, still very Jewish kind of Christianity. Because it was still Jewish. Church history tells us that 2nd century Christians did observe the Master's death on Passover. And all Christians observed the day of his ascension, but who was celebrating the day of his birth on Sukkot? Who celebrated the day of his circumcision on the 8th day? We've never heard that. Well, the source behind this seems to reflect an era before the Christian custom of celebrating in December 25th, which was 336 when we first see that in Rome. The legendary story remembers a time when believers still kept the biblical festivals, but attached a messianic significance to each one of them. Passover, death of Messiah. Shavuot, ascension of Messiah. Sukkot, the birth of Messiah. Since the believers in this story are Jewish, the legend likely provides us a glimpse of early Jewish believers celebrating the Master's birth at the festival of Sukkot. This writing, this medieval writing with a foundation in the 2nd century, was trying to show how ignorant it made these Jewish Christians look to celebrate these things related to Messiah instead of the Jewish festival itself. That Peter basically tricked them into substituting these celebrations, and they excommunicated themselves from the synagogue. We know that's not true, but listen, for us, it establishes that far back, there was this association with the believing community believing Yeshua was born on Sukkot. The early community did celebrate the death, his ascension. And it is reasonable from this text that survived all these years. Forget about what its purpose was in the medieval times. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the historical precedent we find. It is reasonable to assume that there is a birth connection to Sukkot, which could be informed by the 1st and 2nd century understanding. It's complicated, but it makes sense. However, it still doesn't prove a thing. I wish it did. I wish we could just say, I can't, no one can. And the truth is, though, you ready? It doesn't really matter when Yeshua was born. It matters that he was born. It matters that he died. And it matters that he resurrected, and we are in turn born again, to use some good Christian language. It's actually very Jewish language. These things, I want to believe all those things. But again, keep in mind, what I really want you to understand is that there are things that we don't really know. And don't go to the mat on something as insignificant as that. However, I believe you can confidently move forward in your celebration of saying, Merry Christmas in your sukkah. Shabbat Shalom. I'm kidding, don't say that, because that'll really confuse people. But I'll leave you with this. Hag Sukkot Sameach. May God bless this time for you in this season of rejoicing. And
maybe we'll make a birthday cake. Let's stand together. We will conclude this with the Aleinu. This is a closing prayer, but a beautiful kingdom prayer. Aleinu leshabeach la'adon hakol, la'tet gedula le'otzer bereshit, shelo asanu ki goyei haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot hadama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kichol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malhei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shehu Notei Shamayim v'Yosei Haaretz, U'moshav Yikaro b'Shamayim mimal, U'shchinatu zo, b'govei meromim, Hu Eloheinu Einon, Emed Malkeinu Efes Ulato, Kakatu b'Torato, וידעת היום והשבותה אל לבביך כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ מתחתנו ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד, Actually, it's a Sukkot prayer too, because that's from Zechariah, right in the section in 14 where he's talking about all of the nations of the world coming to celebrate Sukkot in Jerusalem. So it's all of those things, kingdom and Sukkot. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you his peace. B'Shem Yeshua. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Yo'er Adonai ponav elecha v'yihuneka. Yisa Adonai ponav elecha v'yasem lecha. Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, my friends. It's been wonderful to have some new faces here. Connect with them. Make sure everyone feels welcome. And hopefully we'll see you sometime at Indian Springs or whatever it's called.